Hello, Gold participants and listeners from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And here at Gold, we like to connect with experts in the field of maternal child health from around the world, and we invite them to sit down with us and talk about their journey and have them share insights and information with us. And today, my expert here is Dr. Melanie Badali. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Kristen. It's my pleasure to be here.
And it's wonderful to have you here. And you will be part of the Gold Perinatal Online Conference of 2019, correct?
That's correct. I'm very much looking forward to it.
And we are looking forward to having you. Before we dive into your topic and the conference, let our listeners know where in the world are you located and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm located in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and it's a really beautiful part of Canada. We're right on the Pacific Ocean. There's mountains, there's water. It's gorgeous. It does rain here quite a bit, and that can affect people's mood. But other than that, it is absolutely gorgeous. I work at the North Shore Stress and Anxiety Clinic, helping women who are dealing with a variety of issues during pregnancy and the perinatal period, um, and do a few other things as well.
Thank you for sharing that. So you're mentioning you're working especially with women in the perinatal period, is that correct?
I do. I have a part of my practice dedicated to that. I do see other people as well, but I have a special interest in this period. I think it's a very vulnerable period for people. There's a lot of sleep deprivation, a lot of changes going on in the body with hormones and, well, I mean, creating a baby. Even for adoptive parents, there's a lot of bodily changes that happen as well, because, introducing a new person into your life, into your world, requires a lot of adjustments. And so it's a period where we see that people who have never had any mental health problems before can develop them, and people who have a history with them can have them pop back up again, and people who were dealing with them when they became pregnant can find them exacerbated.
And it is so wonderful that you will be presenting with us on the topic of maternal guilt and shame during the perinatal period. I can already hear a sound of relief from our listeners. They will be saying, "Oh my goodness, finally we are talking about this." In general, before we go to that though, in the years that you've been conducting your work, your research, working with families, you probably have seen a huge shift, right? I mean, there was a time where we didn't really talk about this at all. We just assumed, okay, when you have a baby, there's a change, and now go deal with it.
Right.
And then the next step was we're talking about postpartum depression and postpartum, anxieties, and now we're also looking in the prenatal period as well. So tell us a little bit what you've seen in your career, so kind of the development, if you may.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I really like that people are talking more in general about mental health. I really believe that if we're talking about things and we're, shining a light on things, they don't grow as much. There's a chance to access resources that are available. Of course, as you know, there's never enough, resources available for mental health, but at least it's a start. And the thing that I noticed being a psychologist was that I found that some of my clients were revealing to me things that provoked huge shame responses in them, that I could imagine that the healthcare practitioner who said this one sentence probably didn't even think anything of it. They were probably thinking, I'm going to encourage this healthy practice for new moms and maternal care. And then there was this, kind of space between, what was said and what was felt and what was, interpreted, where the mother just took on this idea that she was a horrible mother somehow, or she was hurting her baby by doing something, or in some cases by not doing something, health-wise. And so I thought, This is a topic that I would really love to talk about with a variety of healthcare professionals because it's something that I might have, kind of the inside scoop on. Sometimes as psychologists, we get backstage passes to,
Mm-hmm.
what people are thinking, and you really realize how, one little comment that you think is going to encourage a client might encourage, eight clients, and then two clients feel like crap. And that's not always to do with what the healthcare professional says. That can do with depression and anxiety, interpretation, and just raising awareness of some of the things that might be going on for some moms who are guilt and shame prone.
And I'm really glad that you're bringing this perspective into the mix here. You as healthcare providers, caring directly for families, we have the discussion. We know that this is an important issue, but often the missing link is, the perspective of expert like you too, because many healthcare providers feel like, yeah, we want to do something, we want to do better, but we are not a psychologist, so this is not really our area of expertise, and it's out of scope of our practice, but we do want to learn, and we do want to do the right thing here. So that's why it's so important to bring experts on like you who help us understand. And you are so right when you said that maybe that one sentence the nurse or the doctor or the midwife said to the woman, that was meant to be an encouragement and get her to, it could be something simple like, oh, have you, you're not exercising, well, it would be good for you to exercise, and that already could
Exactly.
set somebody off into shame and guilt that she's not doing the best she could for her baby. That would make her a horrible mother, right?
Exactly, Christian. And I'm not saying don't encourage
Right.
people. And if every professional was overanalyzing every single thing they said, you would never be able to get your job done. And it's interesting that you brought up the point of the expert perspective. And what I actually think is hardest for healthcare professionals isn't it, well, of course, lack of knowledge is always an issue, and that's
Mhm.
why people are going to be participating in this conference to learn more and to examine their practice, maybe with a new perspective, a new lens, and see after, oh, is there anything I would like to do differently? And, for me, if there was even one person who thought of one way to improve their practice after this, to me that would be a positive difference. I think the other thing is in the reality is that healthcare professionals are pressed for time. When you're
Mm.
pressed for
Yeah.
time, you have to focus on your priorities, which is, what you've been trained to do and your skills. And so, there's this is why, for me as the psychologist, because I have more time with people, there's more space for them to reveal some things, and also, for us to explore that, where in many busy, healthcare settings, it's very hard to, to do this. And so I've really tried to come up with some concrete uh, suggestions that people can try and incorporate into busy practices.
That's wonderful, and that is so helpful too. And you've already mentioned it a little bit about your presentation. You said one of the hopes is like if even one person makes a change in their practice from what they've learned, that's already a success. Um, what else are you hoping the delegates will take away from it?
I have a couple of objectives for the presentation. One, we all talk about guilt, and some of us, I'm noticing more and more people are talking about shame, especially since shame researcher Brene Brown has become popular. She has a show on Netflix and,
Yeah.
was on Oprah, and so people are talking about shame more. But I really want to kind of give delegates the opportunity to dig into those and explore a little bit about what some other researchers are saying in different ways to recognize guilt and shame, especially during the perinatal period. Um, with this, I would like to have people have a more deep understanding of guilt and shame and understand that there's actually different types of shame.
Mhm.
Because one of my passion areas is helping people with anxiety and anxiety disorders, I'm also going to be talking about how guilt and shame manifest in relation to anxiety. And I think um, uh, people are going to be interested in learning a bit more about that. And finally, as I said before, really giving people some concrete skills that they can use so they can play a role in reducing guilt and shame during the perinatal period. And this means beyond uh, simply referring people for mental health um, treatment, though that is definitely a way to help
Right.
reduce it, but also about just little small things that you can do in your own practice.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Also, if I look now at your title there, and it really spoke also to me, maternal guilt and shame. Uh, Many of us listening are, care providers or doulas or, lactation consultants, but many of us are also mothers or parents, right? And have experienced some kind of guilt or shame ourselves. And one of the things that I also now look at this, like thinking about the topic, is how we take our own experiences and maybe our own guilt and shame experience that we experience in our own lives into our practice as well. I can also see how that can come into it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think having that lived experience can help you be more sensitive as a practitioner because you know how pervasive mom guilt is. Like, find me
Yeah.
a mom who hasn't had a taste of mom guilt, and I'll find you a psychopath. Like, like really, it would be very, very unusual because um, we tend to really value our children, and
Yeah.
because we place such priority, it's very easy to feel bad if we make a little mistake, and even as a mom to feel bad if you just don't do something good. You hear
Right.
about or, I mean, how many times has a mom, done all the research for the best,
Right.
let's say car seat, or if you
Right.
live in a
Right.
country that doesn't use car seats, you ask every mom you know about the best way to do a certain, kind of breastfeeding technique so your baby, um, you know, it can latch properly, but then your baby doesn't latch, and then you find out that there was another technique that you hadn't tried, or you find out that that car seat that you bought, now there's a new product alert that it's dangerous, and you
Mm.
just you feel helpless because this our brains actually change with motherhood, and we know for sure this is part of the process for people who've carried their children, but also for adoptive parents and fathers. There are biological changes that occur as we are transitioning to this new, role in our life. And, it makes sense that we would be paying attention, extra close attention to our behavior and trying to do the right thing. The problem is there's just so much uncertainty involved in parenting and so much responsibility involved
Yeah.
in parenting. And, the societal standards tend to be very high. And, some people say, oh, it's all about the posts on Instagrams. And I'm like, you know what? There were no offense to the mother-in-laws, but like there was mother-in-laws and parents and aunts and neighbors who were quite happy to put in their, 2 cents for how you were parenting your baby long before we ever had social media. As long as we've had people, we've had commentary on, how you're doing in your job as
Yeah.
a parent.
That is absolutely true. But my question is, do you think it is worse now, or because you see all the picture perfect images on Instagram from, whatever, whatever little thing it is, there's always like this, oh, I can do this or do it better or, show off my skills. Do you think it's worse than it was before we had
I,
social media?
I think this is a really good question. In terms of the research, I don't know any research that specifically examined this topic. If I'm just giving my, clinical
Right.
opinion based on interacting with people, I do think it's added another dimension because when we were in social groups where we had, sort of regular contact with people and other families, we were seeing the highlights, but we were also seeing the kids crying their faces off and
Yeah.
dirty and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And now I feel like we have a lot of exposure, not just to celebrities and, advertising and things like that, but to people in our extended networks of friends, not the people that we see every day so that we can hear, oh, yeah, after we took that picture on the beach with our whole family and we were all wearing the pretty dresses, one kid punched the other kid and then, I got mad and we all cried and, you
Yeah.
don't see that
Yeah.
real life behind the scenes. You don't get that, you don't get that. And yeah, I mean the research that has been done on social media generally does show mood going down after interactions on things like Facebook. So if we extend that to the perinatal population,
Mm.
I would say that it's definitely something to be aware of. And often, when are we checking social media? Maybe, moms are checking it when they're awake in the middle of the night at 2
Right.
o'clock and they're not really feeling that great anyways. When so often people are even checking when they're kind of not doing that much exciting. Because when you're
Right.
playing with your baby, you're not checking
No, that's
social
true.
media,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
happy, you're probably not checking social media. You
That's a
might
very
be, you might be, you might be because you want to just, because you're a
yeah.
very extroverted person. I shouldn't say that, but often, when we're out and really truly engaged in the present
That's
moment,
it. Yes.
we're not doing stuff on social media.
That's right. You've also written a book, is that correct? Match Made on Earth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes, that's not really that relevant to this population. One of the
That's
things
okay.
that I
Just
do
good to know.
when I'm not in clinical practice
Yeah.
is I train psychology students in
Oh,
how to do cognitive behavior therapy.
oh,
And so
good.
I'm really involved in training and, I really like nurturing and mentoring that next generation. So that book is actually
Beautiful.
a book for clinical psychology students. And again, really some of the themes that I will be talking about this presentation are there because there is a
Mhm.
lot of anxiety around new roles, right?
Yeah.
As you're
Yeah.
emerging in your profession or as you're emerging in your role as a new parent, it's often a time of stress. And stress isn't always just about, kind of bad things. It can occur with new things. And
Mm.
basically any time that perceived demands outweigh perceived resources, um, you can have stress and being a parent is it's just always changing. You think you've got something down and then it's like, okay, finally figure okay, either I figured out to get how to get the baby to sleep or the baby just started sleeping.
Right.
Yeah, it's with these with little ones, it's a moving target. You figure out one thing and then, oh, now it's time to drop a nap, or now it's time to move on to a different food, just as you figured out what food they liked. And it's a time of a lot of uncertainty. It's hard to get mastery, when
Right.
you're a parent because it's always changing.
Changing.
And we know that, when we when we don't feel like we're doing a good job, that's not it doesn't help our mood.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Melanie Badali, it was so lovely talking with you today, and I am looking forward to your presentation here with us in October.
Oh, thank you for having me.
In the presentation, Maternal Guilt and Shame During the Perinatal Period, and this is for our listeners now, is part of the Gold Perinatal Online Conference of 2019. This presentation will be live on October 7th. So check our website to find out when this presentation will be live in your time zone and to find out more about all the other presentations in the conference. You will find us on goldperinatal.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye bye for now.